consciousness of being Nigerian is lacking even within the educational curriculum context. Because when you're building a society, which we have opportunity now, because the average median age of the Nigerian is 19. So having the population of people at that age, youth population under 35, 70%. So you have an opportunity to readdress the society through education. But now, do we have the political will? Because governance now, who has a framework for policy, is why governance is critical. If anybody who wants to go into governance must look at these parameters, say, I'm going into governance because I want to influence education. The next influencer of society is religion. Everybody listens to their imam on Friday and their pastors on Sunday, if you don't do midweek service and otherwise. But your imam on Friday, if you're faithful, and your pastors on Sunday, and your priests once in a while to do some oracles on your behalf. So the reality is that within this sector of individuals, whether at the religious level of Christianity and the Muslims and all that, what is the pulpit centered on? I heard one man saying that the pulpit is not for politics. And I said, no, it is different for you saying that the pulpit should not express partisanship in its extremism. Because within your local church, you have all manners of individuals. But the pulpit should teach political involvement. The pulpit should teach social responsibility, that my nation, apart from desiring to go to heaven, as the case may be, like I told some people, you may be surprised, you may not go there, it's not, nobody's sure, but you can at least make your nation look like the heaven. So individual. Then the third part is family. The family structure has been destroyed due to poverty, lack of understanding where family structure should have been, where your value creation should be. When all of us were growing, my father would always say, a good name is better than many riches. I mean, those were the value system which we grew up. So if we need to change the society, these three areas we need to pay critical attention. But again, the governance aspect, which has to do with politics, the civil service, and all that, was also destroyed. I always tell people that in 1975, the civil service of Nigeria began to deteriorate. Because prior to 1975, Nigerian civil service was one of the best that we were giving other nations judges, and people were coming to Nigeria to pick up experts that would represent them. But the moment when the coup of 75 took place, experts who had gotten to the height of their career in their 40s have become experts. But because you were dealing with your opponent who was a military man, you now retire so many people who were involved in his governance. It doesn't work that way. The civil servants are not involved in coup, except you can prove it. They should have kept those intelligent men and women, and my father was one of them. So by the time they retired him, my father didn't have a house that he owned by himself. Of course, he had houses, you know, the kind of houses, but they were not living in luxury. We were paying the salary of teachers and teachers in Trinidad and Tobago. Nigeria was paying salaries of places, and the Nigerian civil servant could compete with United Kingdom. But the moment that happened, and the civil servants were not even told before they pushed them out of the system, a new ideology came into the civil service. It is not my father's job. I will not kill myself. People retired, they went straight to their villages, to their huts. They retired and went to the... So that distrust for government, that lack of nationality is lacking. Singapore, Lin Kuan Yew said something, that what made Singapore survive and prosper was confidence. Nigeria doesn't have confidence in the system. Nigeria, that's why, I mean, I looked at the number, registered voters, accreditation, and I'm looking at, where did they go? 500,000 people, 500,000 people. You mean you didn't come out? Or maybe you didn't have PVC? What went wrong? And it just shows that we have a confidence issue with governance. And there's a man called Fukuyama, if I can get his name.
Francis Fukuyama.
Yes, Fukuyama. He said something that in one of his books, he said, trust is the base for prosperity and prosperity of government. And where trust is being taken away, no matter what a nation wants to try, it will not move forward.
But the question is, the fact that the people came out to register, let me use FCT for instance, where you had over 1.3 million people registered, isn't that a sign of trust?
No, it's two things. A sign of maybe futuristic trust. Since they call it permanent voters card, let me put it in my pocket But like he said, I may not
anticipate.
Yeah, anticipating.
In case,
I may
just
not
in
trust
case.
now. So like he said, the political guys running, you look like I told people, I said, nobody can really boast of morality within the first few that are running, that are tough. So what else are we looking for? So a lot of people were asking me, who should we vote for? I can't see where there's a strong ideology or strong passion for the nation, but
really, even with the new entrance and the narrative of,
like I said, the new entrance is the issue also of trust. Okay. I just met Ijoma 6 months ago, and she says she's running for XYZ. Who is she? What are her precedents? What has she done? Remember, what you have done is not in your state. I don't care what you have done in your state. It doesn't reflect at the national level. We're talking about national election. And someone like Mogalu, who began to have, his name started popping up, as it were. Probably if Mogalu started 2 years ago and moved the youth population, because remember the youth had the highest voting power, something could have happened.
So even when you said the youth had the highest voting power, looking at the results coming in, is this the youth, or is this a normal trend of?
No, this is not.
How can you guys say it's not the youth? Is it?
It's not showing. It's not showing because for most of them who had, we were discussing back to that those who say we have 1 million followers, 2 million followers, that's not what election is about. You don't win election on social media. Is what is on the ground.
But I thought they said social media plays a critical part. You know, when we had this conversation, they said, oh, all those who are pushing the narrative, just like it was in America on social media. And so we began to have hope that, all right, perhaps social media followers would translate.
Social media followers has to have a base for followership.
In real life?
In real life. What is the cushion of me putting my vote here? I told a lot of them, I said, like we were discussing among us, say, don't waste your vote. That became the social media trend. No waste your vote. We'll just put the vote where we know say it could count. So that became an issue. Say, if I go vote for this man where I know say no go win, it became also the issue. Why? Because you have not built a structure. I told most of them, I say, can you people just come together and put down your ambition? If you really want to make an upset, or you want to challenge these structures that have been, these are men who have pumped their money and done what we call, I call it, not to use a strong word like that, philanthropy, but in the negative way. You know, when you give people fish, but you never teach them how to fish. So the poverty level within your sector, you are the only good king among the people who are living in poverty. So you really haven't created transformation. You really haven't created change. You're just a feudal system where everybody bows to you, rank adede, gabiesi. So you have a big man and a few guys bowing. That also is an effect that we have in our nation, where the small man feels that, please, if the man even gave me 2,000 naira now, at least 4 years ago, I was begging for 5,000 to pay school fees. He didn't give me. Now he's giving me 2,000 naira. Let me just vote for him. The man knows my house. Let me not go and send some people to beat me up. There are a lot of issues. Look at the Niger Delta politics playing now, especially in River State. It is a sense of warlords. These are men who, over the years, are warlords. They can call themselves politicians, but they're actually warlords. They have quotas, occupation, just like in America, the Wild Wild West. This is my territory. I decide what the people think. But this election also has shown that there's a breaking away. People are saying, I've had it. Even though I'm under your camp, what have I eaten 4 years ago? So it's showing up in the numbers. But by and large, I think Nigerians need the elite class. We need individuals who are educated to get into politics now.
Mr. Olugbenle, there was a bit of, someone wanted to raise an objection or a comment when the results were being announced, and he had said there was a discrepancy between the number of people that were accredited to vote and then the figure you have, looking at the number of voided votes and the number of votes cast against accredited voters. That there's this discrepancy. I'm not quite sure how they want to work that out, but what do you think? Okay,
we must have been backstage. I mean, I've missed that. Yeah. But just taking it from where you've put on the table, I'm still surprised that these things can't be clearly worked out. I trained with KPMG, Pete Mavikani Ogunde, and I rose to become a supervising senior. So we work with figures, reconciling. I mean, once the polling units have been signed off on, I don't see what's the big deal in collating all the way up. This should be done in less than 24 hours.
Well, there's also the manual aspect, because the law, the legal framework, we've asked during the course of this program, the legal framework provides for manual collation, which means that the physical sheets of paper, the results, have to actually be carried from those booths to the wards, to the local governments, to the states, and then physically, you actually,
you see
the people actually carrying
the spreadsheet.
That's it, they're actually carrying physical bags all the way from whichever state to the National Collation Center in Abuja, because that's what the law currently provides for.
So that takes you back to where I started from earlier on, the mindset that still allowed that to hold in the 21st century. How much money moves in this economy every day? How many of them happen successfully? What is the failure rate? It's probably something the banks can live with. The susceptibility to fraud is minimal, it's manageable. So the mindset that still allowed paper and calculators is not the mindset that will take us to the moon. Okay? Now, so back to where we were, the point here is, once you have the polling unit, it should move digitally. Now, if there is a contention, you should be able to spot it out and say, okay, I see what you are quoting as this figure here. What we have is this figure, and this is our differential. Can you resort it? Can you resolve that? Period. And we move on. It's not something that is not English. We don't need to speak too much English. It's mathematics, it's figures, it's arithmetic. It's just adding.
I think there's a bit more to the adding than when we just do it on paper.
Yes, but
apparently,
I'm not sure we can discuss that.
Because it would appear as if, so many people on this set and from our Abuja studios have said variations of what you said about the need for speed, about the technology use, and so on.
It's project management.
But somehow, in the link between the idea and its implementation, there is this, whether you want to call it a block,
which is called self-interest.
There is an unknown factor.
Yesterday, I was telling our
guests, it's self-interest. It's not national.
Everybody seems to know what you're saying, but when it comes to time to say, yeah, can we do this? They say no.
Something is wrong. Yes.
Because of self-interest.
Can I let me come in here. We are running a democracy. We call it a growing democracy. But is it really a democracy? Let me take us back to Brexit. I read somewhere that the most researched phrase or word after that event was, what is Brexit? So even in the UK, people took a decision and did not know
what it was they were deciding.
This is an advanced democracy. So if democracy is supposed to be democracy, it means the people are informed, the people are knowledgeable. I drove through Awolowo Road about 2-3 days ago, and that was my first time of actually seeing items being distributed, and I really wept in my heart. I saw mothers, young people, old people fighting for a bag of rice and gari. Now,
you mean as part of the political process?
As part of the
okay.
And this is Lagos.
This is Lagos. Awolowo Road. So I said to myself, the big truck was parked there that was distributing it, and it was coming out of the fire station.
I should have been an eyewitness. You didn't video it.
No, I didn't want myself to be harassed. Okay. Now, so the question is, these people will vote. Is this democracy? So it's not democracy because the people voting don't even understand the issues. So in a case like this, if we were to say, you know what's the best way for us? We can't go back there now. But really what we would have preferred is benevolent dictatorship. Somebody who is a father. Because if I were to take a decision and I have a family of 4 or 5 children that are still below 10, I'm not going to call them for a meeting to decide what we do with the next 1 million naira that comes in, because they can't
So are you saying democracy is not for us? Is that what you mean?
Well, what has been said, is that the more educated, the more conscious, the more aware, the more enlightened people are, you should tend towards democracy. The less knowledgeable, informed, enlightened that they are, you should tend away from democracy. Which is why...
Where does Nigeria
Who said this?
It's out there.
We're in the middle of it, actually.
Okay. So right now, if you like it or you like it, a few people are deciding for us where we go. So those few people are the ones that decide for all of us. So what we are saying here right now is, can some other people who know what it should be about also rise up and checkmate?
Let me take you...
because if we are waiting for everybody...
Before you put in that question, one would want to ask this. Both of you have, particularly Mrs. Benitie, has spoken to the fact that you had two big parties. They don't like the use of that language to describe the others. Fringe, emergent, smaller, upcoming. I mean, all kinds of descriptions have been given to them. Now, those others, much earlier in the political process, as alternatives, there was the idea, the strategy that come together. See, if you put all your strengths together, you might be able to give a fight. They couldn't.
It remained an idea.
They couldn't.
That's why I said the issue of self-interest.
Even the few who said, okay, 8, 9, 10 of us, can we agree, you know, let's just do a straw poll or something like that, and then now...
See who has the most strength.
Yeah, and come around. They couldn't agree.
There were issues about the composition of that straw
Even the composition, I mean, it became an issue. And these are the educated and enlightened.
That's what I mean. Remember I said the last time, I said,
yes,
I said culture matters. Culture matters. I told about the book it's a book called Culture Matter. There was research that was done with Harvard and other schools, how culture influences the society and eventually influence the economy, because it was looking at the economic outputs of certain nations. By 1922, when Herbert Macaulay had founded that political party, I think it's NCPC, something like that, one political party then, many of them had come together, even within the West Africa nation that were under the British rule, came together and they began to find solutions to what would bring them independent and how to run. I mean, Gambia and Ghana, all of them coming together having that discussion. That's why I said I come back to the challenge of nationalism. Within these individuals who say they are running for election, office and all that, the sense of nationalism is very low. Take, for example, the man we all called OBG, we call Baba. When you see some of these elderly people, I beg to say clearly with every sense of clarity that they have more sense of nationalism than most of us down the way. They have more love for country. You see, we have removed there's something love for country gives me, tell each other, if I find out that he's better than me and we can come together and do things better, I would bow to him and say, yield. I said, oh, go on. Why the ultimate goal is not whether I reign. The goal is solution. The goal is transformation. The goal is a new Nigeria. The goal is this. But you could see the power tussle within themselves. And I looked at some of them and said, you seem to have some old poison that other people too have.
Do you think the people saw that and so decided to relapse into their old voting pattern? Or would
people saw through it.
Oh, people saw through it. A lot of people saw through it. Who could have been a base for them to ride on? There was a call. I made even a personal call to a particular person. I said, look, do yourself a favor and be the first to throw your presidency on the table. And tell everybody, I have given up on my presidency. Let us come together and ask for an ideology that we take all of us for. What is the intent? Is the intent to be president, or the intent is to build a nation? Those are the cool questions. But guess what? Africans have a knack for position power. The senior pastor, the imam, the husband, head of the home. there's a sense of lack of serving one another, serving a larger interest than myself. I probably am privileged because I had a father who taught me nationalism. I learned nationalism from my father's house. My father did not have the preference of, or even for us as daughters, marry whomever you want, as long as he's not a thief. That was his own ideology. So even within homes, that Igbo man, that Yoruba, that Hausa, the sense of nationhood is still not existing in our hearts, in the curriculum that we are transmitting for a new generation. And until that is done, where ANN, YPP, whoever you are, learn to say that, why can't we come together? For me, I'm even looking for, if it's possible to even pass a bill. I was talking to him at the past. I said, is there a way for us to just have 3 parties? This one, and the third. Choose, compete internally until the best start coming up. Look, let me tell you, money politics will not work for too long if more people enter a space. Because if all of us here enters the space, who wants to bribe me?
But a lot of people enter the space this time around.
No, they enter their individual corners. Okay. A space is where all of us can play together, have a think tank, move together, say, is it Joma we want? We find out from the debate, from precedents. We put a benchmark. Before you do the debate, you put a benchmark. We want someone who has experience, who is not tribal, who has presence in many places and can connect all of us. There are benchmarks. But you see, to discuss those benchmarks is why institutions, even within our nations, are difficult to grow. Because as Africans, we have been stained. I call it stained. Stained in our soul. That if me, Juliet, is not in front, it is not, I'm not the happening chick. I need to happen. I don't care. You don't have to be seen. But can you make things work? It's a feudal spirit that hasn't been dealt with. And in the book, Culture Matters, they were putting a demographic on issues of religion, culture, how we raise people up. And Africa was at the bottom. And why were we at the bottom? It was proved that we do not raise people on ideology. We raise them on sentiment, brotherhood, tribal. Singapore, the late Lee Kuan Yew, in the 60s, predicted Nigeria specifically amongst all the countries, and said their tribal differences outweighs their national passion. And that is something we need to start discussing. And I believe that these individuals, after they do their own postmortems and discuss among themselves, they should look at themselves and say, where did we go wrong? And go back to the drawing table, because I'm not giving up on any one of them. But each person has a potential. But potential sometimes need to be brought together to become more potent. So that if you're dealing with the ideologies that you feel that these old men, they don't care for the nation, that's trying to sell us out, all well and good. But do you even love the country as much as they do? Because many of them love the nation in a way. Some of them don't, not all of them. But when we look at these fathers, my own father loved Nigeria recklessly. Reckless love, I haven't seen. Sacrifice maybe family for national interest. But today it's all about me.
Mr. Olugbenle, is our tribalism still playing out?
Wow.
I mean, with the results that are coming in.
It's right in our face. It's right in our face. How we're going to get out is the big issue.
But